Good morning. Today we are going to see about respiratory system. Introduction of respiratory system. The respiratory system is the network of organs and tissues that help you breathe. It includes your airways, lungs and blood vessels. The muscles that power your lungs are also part of the respiratory system. These parts work together to move oxygen throughout the body and clean out waste gases like carbon dioxide. The functions of respiratory system. The respiratory system has many functions besides helping you inhale, breathe in, and exhale, breathe out. It allows you to talk and to smell. It warms air and to match your body temperature and moisturizes it to the humidity level your body needs. It delivers oxygen to the cells in your body. It removes waste gases including carbon dioxide from the body when you exhale. It protects your airways from the harmful substances like irritants. Organs of respiratory system. The respiratory system has many different parts that work together to help you breathe. Each group of parts has many separate components. The first one is mouth and nose, and second one pharynx, trachea, bronchial tube and lungs. Mouth and nose is the opening that pull air from outside your body into your respiratory system. Pharynx, throat, the tube that delivers air from your mouth and nose to the trachea, windpipe. Trachea is passage connecting your throat and lungs. Bronchial tube is the tube at the bottom of your windpipe that connects into each lung. The lung has two organs that removes oxygen from the air and pass it into your blood. So first one is mouth. The mouth, also known as the oral cavity, is the secondary external opening for the respiratory tract. Most normal breathing takes place through the nasal cavity, but the oral cavity can be used to supplement or replace the nasal cavities when function is needed. Because the pathway of air entering the body from the mouth is shorter than the pathway for air entering from the nose. The mouth does not warm and moisturize the air entering the lungs, as well as the nose performs these functions. The mouth also lacks the hairs and sticky mucus that filter the air passing through the nasal cavity. The one advantage of breathing through the mouth is that its shorter distance and larger diameter allow more air to quickly enter the body. So this is human mouth anatomy. The first one lips. The second, this region is called as gums, and this region hot palate, and this soft palate, and this is uvula, and this is papillae of tongue, and this region is called a tongue. The second one is pharynx. The pharynx, also known as the throat, is a muscular funnel that extends from the posterior end of the nasal cavities to the superior end of the esophagus and larynx. The pharynx is divided into three regions. The first one is nasopharynx, oropharynx and laryngopharynx. The nasopharynx is the superior region of the pharynx found in the posterior of the nasal cavity. The inhaled air from the nasal cavity passes into the nasopharynx and descends through the oropharynx located in the posterior of the oral cavity. The air inhaled through the oral cavity enters the pharynx at the oropharynx. The inhaled air then descends into the laryngopharynx where it is diverted into the opening of the larynx by the epiglottitis. The epiglottitis is a flap of elastic cartilage that act as a switch between the trachea and the esophagus. Because the pharynx is also used to swallow food, the epiglottitis ensure that air passes into the trachea by covering the opening of the esophagus. During the process of swallowing, the epiglottitis move to cover the trachea and ensure that food enters the esophagus and to prevent choking. This is anatomy of pharynx. The pharynx contains various parts. First one is Paranasal sinuses. Here is the three regions of pharynx. One is nasopharynx, then second one is oropharynx, and third one is laryngopharynx. And below this, esophagus and entrance of the esophageal tube. And this region is nasal cavity, and this is soft plate, and this one is hot plate. Here is the oral cavity, and this region is tongue, and this region is epiglottis. So below the epiglottis there is larynx and trachea. This is anatomy of pharynx. The next important thing is larynx. The larynx, also known as the voice box, is a short section of the airway that connects the laryngopharynx and the trachea. The larynx is located in the anterior portion of the neck, just inferior to the hyoid bone and superior to the trachea. Several cartilage structures make up the larynx and give it its structure. The epiglottis is one of the cartilage pieces of the larynx and serves as the cover of the larynx during the swallowing. Inferior to the epiglottis is the thyroid cartilage, which is often referred to as the Adam's apple, as it is most commonly enlarged and visible in adult males. The thyroid holes open the anterior end of the pharynx and protects the vocal folds. Inferior to the thyroid cartilage is the ring-shaped cricoid cartilage, which holds the larynx open and support its posterior end. In addition to cartilage, the larynx contains special structures known as the vocal folds, which allow the body to produce the sounds of the speech and singing. The vocal folds are folds of mucous membrane that vibrate to produce vocal sounds. The tension and vibration speed of the vocal folds can be changed to change the pitch that they produce. So this is anatomy of larynx, that is cross section of larynx. Here is the nasal cavity, and here is the oral cavity, tongue, epiglottis, and here is supraglottis, and this region is vocal cord, and glottis and subglottis and esophagus, and finally this region is trachea. And next one is trachea. The trachea or windpipe is a 5-inch long made of C-shaped hyaline cartilage rings lined with pseudo-stratified ciliated columnar epithelium. The trachea connects the pharynx to the bronchi and allow air to pass through the neck and into the thorax. The rings of cartilage making up the trachea allow it to remain open to air at all times. The open end of the cartilage rings faces posteriorly toward the esophagus, allowing the esophagus to expand into the space occupied by the trachea to accommodate masses of food moving through the esophagus. The main function of trachea is provide a clear airway for air to enter and exit the lungs. In addition, the epithelium lining the trachea produces mucus that traps dust and other contaminants to prevent it from reaching the lungs. The cilia on the surface of the epithelial cells move the mucus superiorly toward the pharynx, where it can be swallowed and digested in the gastrointestinal tract. And this is structure of trachea, cross section of trachea. It has many parts. And next one is bronchial. At the inferior end of the trachea, the airway splits into left and right branches known as the primary bronchi. The left and right bronchi run into each lung before branching off into smaller secondary bronchi. The secondary bronchi carry air into the lobes of the lungs. Lungs 2. In the left lung and 3 in the right lung, the secondary bronchi in turn split into many smaller tertiary bronchi within the lobe. The tertiary bronchi split into many smaller bronchioles that spread throughout the lungs. Each bronchiole further split into many smaller branches less than a millimeter in a diameter called terminal bronchioles. Finally, the million of tiny terminal bronchioles conduct air to the alveoli of the lungs. As the airway splits into the tree-like branches of the bronchi and bronchioles, the structure of the walls of the airway begins to change. The primary bronchi contain many C-shaped cartilage rings that firmly hold the airway open and give the bronchi a cross-sectional shape like a flattened circle or letter D. And this is a structure of bronchio, and this region is trachea, and here bronchioles, and then right primary branches, right superior lobe and secondary bronchiolobular, and right middle lobe and right inferior lobe. This is right lung and this is left lung. In left lung there is so many parts, carina, that is carina, left superior lobe and segmental tertiary bronchi, and this region subsegmental bronchi and left primary bronchus, alveoli and left inferior lobe. As the bronchi branch into secondary and tertiary bronchi, the cartilage becomes more widely spaced and more smooth muscle, and elastin protein is found in the walls. The bronchioles differ from the structure of the bronchio in that they do not contain any cartilage at all. The presence of smooth muscles and elastin allow the smaller bronchi and bronchioles to be more flexible and contractile. The main function of the bronchi and bronchioles is to carry air from the trachea into the lungs. Smooth muscles tissues in their walls helps to regulate airflow into the lungs. When greater volumes of air are required by the body, such as during excessive, the smooth muscle relaxes to dilate the bronchi and bronchioles. The dilated airway provides less resistance to airflow and allows more air to pass into and out of the lungs. The smooth muscles fibers are able to contract during the reset to prevent hyperventilations. The bronchi and bronchioles are also use the mucus and cilia of their epithelial lining to trap and move dust and other contaminates airway from the lungs. And next one is lungs. The lungs are a pair of large spongy organs found in the thorax, lateral to the heart and superior to the diaphragm. Each lung is surrounded by a pleural membrane that provides the lung with a space to expand as well as a negative pressure space relative to the body's exterior. The negative pressure allows the lungs to passively fill with air as they relax. The left and right lungs are slightly different in size and shape due to the heart pointing to the left side of the body. The left lung is therefore slightly smaller than the right lung and is made up of 2 lobes, while the right lung has 3 lobes. The interior of the lungs is made up of spongy tissues containing many capillaries and around 30 million tiny sacs known as alveoli. The alveoli are cup-shaped structures found at the end of the terminal bronchioles and surrounded by capillaries. The alveoli are lined with thin, simple squamous epithelium that allows air entering the alveoli to exchange its gases with the blood passing through the capillaries. This is the structure of lungs. The lungs contains various structures, that is this is right lung and this is left lung. The in right lung there is alveoli, a right primary bronchus, a right superior lobe this region, and horizontal fissure, and right middle lobe this region, then a right inferior lobe this region, and obligate fissure. And a left lung, this is the same start with the trachea, and then the left primary bronchus, cardiac node, and oblique fissure, and the pleura and diaphragm. So thank you for listening this video. I will meet another important topic. Thank you so much.